stock prices are soaring for Novavax. It's a COVID-19 vaccine. Its vaccine has officially entered early stage trials. Results from the first phase of the testing could come as early as July. Joining us now to weigh in, Dr. Niket Sonpal, an internist and gastroenterologist, and former White House physician, Dr. Ronnie Jackson. Dr. Sonpal, I'm sure you saw this. It drove the stock market this morning up hundreds of points, a lot of optimism. What do you think of this particular vaccine candidate?
I think it's actually great news that there are companies out there that are entering human trial. There's about 130 or so people who have entered the trial. They'll be monitored and looked at very, very closely to see both adverse effects as well as efficacy of the trial. What's most important about this is the optimism, is the hope, because there has not really been a light at the end of this tunnel until now. And I can assure you that both healthcare professionals all across the hospitals and all across the country are really have our fingers crossed for this. The vaccine, from its technical data, does sound promising.
So, Dr. Jackson, it's my understanding that there's about a dozen of experimental vaccines in the early stages of testing right now, or they're poised to start. Talk to us about how encouraged you are knowing that, and also just how important it is as part of Operation Warp Speed for America to really take the lead and to secure a vaccine.
Yeah, well, this is great news, actually. This is some cutting edge technology that this company's using, that they're testing now in Australia. And, I just think that, the president's Warp Speed program is partly responsible for this, because if you read the articles about this, they're actually doing what the president has allowed them to do, which is to manufacture doses of this vaccine while simultaneously testing this vaccine, so that if they prove that this vaccine works and it's effective, they're already going to have doses in production, which is going to be key. And like I said, this is exciting news, because this is the same technology that this company has used to put together an influenza vaccine that's at the late stages of testing. It looks very promising right now. So I think there's a lot of hope here.
Is there anything else that makes this vaccine in particular unique?
I think, it's the technology. Like I said, they take the RNA, the roadmap of the protein that's been identified as one of the proteins that causes the immune response, which is the spike protein for the virus. And they basically produce this protein, and then they give it to the patient, or, to someone that they don't want to get the infection. And your body produces antibodies to that vaccine, that protein, that if you come in contact with the virus, your body's already prepped and ready to destroy it. And so I think it's great technology.
All right, Dr. Sonpal, even though I just want to make sure Dr. Jackson knows that I did recognize the Lone Star on his wall, which I'm very impressed with. Thank you. And Dr. Sonpal, there is an indication that men who took prostate drugs had lower death rates. Have you seen that, in fact, to be the case? And if so, what drugs?
So I actually have not seen that. We have heard some variations, and there have been a lot of medications like this. There are the prostate drugs, there were the heartburn drugs that we've discussed before. And when you look at data of patients who were affected, we do know that there's a slight deviation towards people with higher levels of testosterone. Some of these prostate drugs can sort of modulate that effect and may have helped with survival. Why it happens, we don't totally know yet, the numbers of which still need to be looked at. But again, as this pandemic comes and starts to smolder down, we're going to start to get a lot of data in the post hoc sort of purview. And in looking at those smaller groups, maybe for the future, we may be able to identify risk groups and people who are more at risk, and also, more importantly, people who are at least risk.
Dr. Jackson, the Black community just continues to see higher incidence of coronavirus. What do we need to do to better support minorities and people who are at risk in that community?
Well, I think a lot of that's access to health care and just preventative measures that sometimes these populations don't have access to or are not encouraged to pursue. So I think better education, better access to health care for these communities is going to lead to better overall health for these folks, less incidence of diabetes, heart disease, obesity, things of that nature, things that we know are already identified as comorbidities that portend a poorer outcome if you get this virus. So I think we have to focus on that, and it applies in that community as well.
I know the
in their
president
long-term
too.
health.
He's taken this issue to heart. I mean, he has been working with leaders, and it just makes you wonder why we aren't seeing more progress, why we aren't seeing the information that we're gathering like really take root and lead to change.
Yeah, I think it's going to happen. It's just going to take a little while to get there. This has really come up on us quick, and the reaction time has not been as quick in some communities as it could have been. And some communities really didn't see the impact that this was going to have on them until just recently. So I think we'll get there. It's just going to take a little bit more time, and I think we'll be really prepared, much better in the fall if this does come back than we are right now because of these things.
Dr. Sonpal, not a lot of time, but I was curious, when you see a certain age group dying and another age group not dying, can you look at the blood of the two different age groups and derive anything from that?
So I would actually say that the idea of convalescent plasma, I think, is what you're alluding to, the idea that if someone has been affected and one group lives and one group doesn't, what are the differences? That's the idea of using plasma donation.